In life, nothing happens until you move. Just like a bicycle needs forward motion to stay upright, your life needs direction and momentum to stay balanced. Imagine someone sitting on a stationary bicycle, feet planted on the ground, staring off into space. It doesn't matter how strong the bike is, how shiny the frame is, or how perfect the weather is. Until they push that pedal, nothing begins. Life works the same way. All the talent, all the ideas, all the dreams in the world mean little without movement. You can't steer a bicycle that isn't moving, and you can't change a life that's standing still. Forward motion is not optional. It is the foundation on which everything else is built. People often wait for clarity before they act, but what they don't realize is that clarity comes through action, not before. When you start moving even slowly, you begin to see the road ahead more clearly. The fog starts to lift, not because the world changed, but because you changed. Action sharpens your vision. It gives you feedback. It tests your commitment, and it fuels your courage. You don't have to know everything to begin, but you have to begin to know anything worth knowing. Sitting still only magnifies doubt and fear. Movement, even uncertain, reduces fear because it tells your mind you're not stuck now. Think of how a child learns to ride a bicycle. They wobble, they fall, they scrape their knees. But they don't learn balance by reading a book. They learn it by trying, by moving, by failing and correcting. That's how we all grow. You won't figure life out in theory. You figure it out in practice. You learn by doing, by attempting, by staying in motion. The reason many people never grow is not because they lack the ability, but because they stopped moving the moment things got hard or unclear. They froze, and when you freeze, balance disappears. When balance disappears, confidence fades. And when confidence fades, potential stays locked inside motion, activates potential. It's what turns ideas into results. That business plan sitting in your drawer, it means nothing until you start. That goal you keep writing in your journal, it stays a wish until you begin walking toward it. That conversation you've been avoiding, it stays a source of anxiety until you speak. Motion doesn't guarantee perfection, but it guarantees progress. And progress brings strength. Each step you take, no matter how small, makes the next step easier. The hardest part of any journey is the first few steps. But once you're moving, once you're building that rhythm, the effort becomes fuel. The struggle becomes part of the climb. Most people are not defeated by failure. They're defeated by inaction. They wait for motivation to strike like lightning. But successful people know that motion creates motivation, not the other way around. You start moving, and suddenly the energy begins to flow. You make a small improvement, and you feel stronger. You complete a task, and you feel capable. Action builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds belief. And belief changes everything. There's a simple law in nature. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. People who get used to moving forward tend to keep moving forward. They fall, they stumble, but they don't sit down and stay there. They get up, they adjust the seat, they fix the chain, and they pedal again. Because they've learned something powerful. That progress doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence. Motion is not about never falling. It's about always rising. And every time you rise, you remind yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. When you make movement a daily habit, life opens up. Opportunities appear not because the world suddenly became generous, but because you finally stepped into the places where those opportunities live. Connections are made, ideas are sharpened, skills are tested, and doors begin to unlock. None of that happens to the one who stays still. The still person becomes a spectator, watching others ride past, wondering why success is so elusive. But the one in motion doesn't wonder, they discover, they experience, they learn, they evolve, because they know something simple and powerful. That balance, growth, and fulfillment are not given to the passive, but earned by the active. Even in hard times, the principle remains the same. When you're overwhelmed, you don't have to solve everything in a single day. You just have to take one step, one action, one decision that moves you forward, no matter how small. That single act begins to change your emotional state, your mental focus, your energy. And when you change your energy, you change your environment. Life rewards movement. It responds to those who dare to begin. Not those who wish, not those who talk, but those who act. When you understand that truth, you no longer wait for the right moment. You create it. You push the pedal. You start the ride. Because motion is the foundation of progress. When you ride a bicycle, balance doesn't come from flawless motion or perfectly smooth roads. It comes from the act of continuing. You don't stay upright by being perfect with every turn of the pedal. You stay upright by not stopping. In life, it's not perfection that keeps us steady, it's consistency. The myth of perfection has robbed too many people of progress. They believe if they can't do something flawlessly, they shouldn't begin at all. But those who understand the rhythm of life know that balance isn't about getting everything right. It's about showing up every day and doing what needs to be done. Look at the person who goes to the gym once a month and compares themselves to the one who goes 3 times a week. The difference isn't talent or genetics. It's consistency. It's the daily choice to return even when motivation fades. Life rewards those who are reliable more than those who are occasionally brilliant. Anyone can be exceptional for a moment, but the one who endures builds something lasting. The person who writes 1 paragraph a day eventually finishes the book. The one who saves a little each month eventually builds wealth. The one who practices every morning slowly becomes a master. Not through sudden bursts of effort, but through repeated acts over time. We've been conditioned to chase perfection, to post only the highlight reels, to avoid failure at all costs. But real balance, mental, emotional, and even physical, comes when you let go of the pressure to be perfect and embrace the power of being steady. Balance is not static, it's dynamic. When you ride a bike, you're constantly making small corrections, leaning slightly left, shifting slightly right. That's life, a series of micro adjustments. You don't stay balanced by freezing, you stay balanced by responding, by adapting, by moving in harmony with what's around you. People often wait to feel balanced before they act. But balance isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. You build it by establishing patterns, by committing to practices that ground you. A morning routine, a habit of reflection, regular time for learning, daily effort toward your goals. These small disciplines create an inner rhythm. And when the chaos of the world tries to knock you down, your consistency becomes your anchor. It keeps you centered. It keeps you from falling apart when things go wrong, because you've trained yourself not to rely on perfect outcomes, but on reliable effort. Consistency builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. When you keep your word to yourself, even in the small things, you start to believe in your ability to follow through. That belief is the core of confidence. It's not the loud kind of confidence that boasts and brags. It's the quiet kind that says, I know who I am because I've proven it in private. When your life is built on consistent choices, you don't panic when you hit a rough patch. You've got a track record. You've got momentum. You know how to keep going because you've kept going before. There's a reason why the most successful people in any field have routines. It's not because they're robots. It's because they understand that habits shape identity, repetition shapes reality. They don't aim for perfect days. They aim for productive ones. They know that showing up, doing the work, putting in the time, even when they don't feel like it, is the real path to balance and achievement. The rhythm of consistency creates stability, and that stability becomes the foundation for greater risks, greater growth, and greater returns. You can have dreams bigger than mountains, but if you don't move daily toward them, they stay dreams. You can have goals that light your soul on fire, but without consistent action, they burn out. Balance is not just about mental peace, it's about alignment. Aligning your thoughts, your words, and your actions until they're all pointing in the same direction. When your actions are out of sync with your values, you feel it. That internal conflict throws everything off. But when you live in consistency with what matters most, balance follows naturally. Not because life got easier, but because you became steady even in relationships. Balance is found in consistency. It's not the grand gestures once a year. It's the daily presence, the regular check-ins, the habit of listening. Trust is not built in one perfect conversation. It's built in the accumulation of consistent actions over time. When people know what to expect from you, they feel secure. And when you know what to expect from yourself, you feel grounded. Perfection is unpredictable. Consistency is dependable. And dependability breeds strength. Life will never be perfectly balanced in every area. There will be seasons of stress, times of uncertainty, and days when everything feels out of control. But if you've built the muscle of consistency, you can keep pedaling through those moments. You don't fall because things got hard. You stay balanced because you've made movement a habit. You've trained yourself to keep going even when the path is bumpy, because balance in the end is not a gift, it's a result of quiet discipline, steady steps, and the refusal to quit even when you're unsure of the outcome. There's a common illusion that momentum simply arrives. That one day you'll feel a sudden wave of energy, drive, and clarity, and everything will start moving in your favor. But real momentum doesn't fall from the sky. It's not granted by luck or sparked by accident. Momentum is built. It's earned through effort. It's created by doing the work when you don't feel like it. It's formed by showing up again and again until the energy begins to shift. When you ride a bicycle, the first few pushes on the pedal are the hardest. The chain resists, the wheels hesitate, your balance wobbles. But if you stay with it, if you keep pedaling, something begins to change. The effort becomes smoother. The ride becomes easier. The energy you had to force in the beginning starts to carry you forward. That's momentum. And it begins only after you've paid the price of initial discomfort. Most people never experience true momentum because they quit before it begins. They try something once or twice, don't feel the results, and assume it's not for them. They switch directions. They abandon the habit. They look for something easier. But those who succeed in any area understand that the early stages of anything worthwhile are awkward, slow, and often unrewarding. The beginning is not glamorous. The beginning is grinding. It's when you push hard with little return. But that's the price you pay for momentum. The initial grind is the down payment on future acceleration. The first few pages of a book might not flow. The first few workouts might feel pointless. The first few sales calls might all be rejections. But each one is a brick in the foundation. And the deeper the foundation, the stronger the structure. Momentum is the reward for persistence. It's what happens when you do the right thing long enough for the results to catch up. When you stick to the practice, when you repeat the discipline, when you honor the process, momentum quietly builds behind the scenes. You may not notice it at first. There's no trumpet announcing its arrival. But then one day, things feel lighter. Opportunities begin to appear. People start paying attention. Progress starts to show, not because you got lucky, but because you stayed long enough for momentum to find you. Momentum doesn't come to the one who waits. It comes to the one who works. It comes to the one who says, I'll keep moving even when I don't see the results yet. Because what you do consistently begins to multiply. Small efforts compound. Daily actions turn into habits. Habits shape identity. And identity determines destiny. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You rise to the level of your systems, your structure, your rhythm. And rhythm is what momentum feels like. That sense that you're no longer pushing the boulder uphill. It's now rolling with you. Momentum is not just physical. It's emotional and mental too. When you make progress, even a little, your mind changes, your outlook shifts. What once felt impossible now feels within reach. Doubt turns into belief. Fear turns into focus. And focus becomes your fuel. One win gives you the courage to go for another. One completed task gives you permission to tackle the next. And soon, you're not forcing yourself to move. You're being pulled forward by the motion you created. Momentum becomes your partner, not your burden. But here's what most people miss. Momentum isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It builds quietly in the background. It grows in the unseen. It develops in the hours when no one is watching. It accumulates in the discipline of keeping promises to yourself when it's inconvenient. You don't always notice when momentum is building, but you always notice when it arrives. Suddenly your effort starts echoing. Your work starts paying off. Your name starts circulating. Your body starts transforming. And people around you start asking what changed. But nothing changed overnight. What changed was that you stopped quitting. You stayed. You endured. You built momentum through repetition. Momentum is also fragile. It doesn't last forever without fuel. It must be maintained. It must be honored. One of the dangers of early success is the temptation to relax, to coast. But a bicycle only stays up when it keeps moving. If you stop pedaling, it doesn't matter how far you've come, you risk losing your balance. The same applies to life. Don't mistake early wins as final victories. Keep moving. Keep doing what got you here. Keep feeding the fire that started to burn. Because once momentum is lost, restarting feels even harder. The chain gets rusty. The wheels get stiff. The mind fills with hesitation. But if you never stop completely, if you maintain your rhythm, momentum will always be ready to carry you further. Those who achieve extraordinary things are not always the smartest or the most talented. They are the ones who stayed long enough for momentum to do what talent alone never could. They are the ones who honored the process, trusted the timing, and understood that the real breakthrough often comes right after most people would have given up. They kept building, not because it was easy, but because they knew that momentum is built, not found. In a world that celebrates hustle, fast results, and instant gratification, it's easy to confuse motion with progress. But there's a difference between moving fast and moving right. You can pedal with all your strength and still end up far from where you wanted to be if you were headed in the wrong direction. On a bicycle, speed without direction leads to accidents, wasted energy, and missed destinations. In life, the same principle holds true. What matters most isn't how quickly you move, but whether you're moving towards something meaningful. Many people spend their days rushing through tasks, chasing goals they never chose for themselves, climbing ladders that are leaning against the wrong walls. They mistake business for productivity and end each day exhausted but unfulfilled. The real danger isn't going slow, it's going fast in the wrong direction. You can always pick up speed once your path is right, but if you're speeding down the wrong road, every step forward takes you further from your true purpose. Direction is rooted in clarity. It requires you to step back, ask yourself hard questions, and define what matters. What are you moving toward? Why does it matter? What kind of person do you want to become on the journey? Without clear answers, even the most impressive efforts can feel hollow. Clarity brings alignment, and alignment brings peace. When your direction is clear, even slow progress feels purposeful. You no longer compare your journey to others because you know you're following your own map. There's a discipline in choosing direction over speed. It takes maturity to pause and reflect when everyone around you seems to be racing ahead. But that pause is powerful. It gives you space to listen to your intuition, to recalibrate your goals, to check whether your actions align with your values. People often fear slowing down because they associate it with falling behind. But true progress isn't measured by how much you do in a day. It's measured by whether you're moving closer to your destination. Speed amplifies direction. Without it, speed becomes a distraction. Sometimes life forces you to slow down, not to punish you, but to help you see where you're really going. A setback, a failure, a pause in the routine, all of these can be opportunities to examine your path. The discomfort of slowing down can reveal truths you ignored while moving too fast. It's in these moments of stillness that direction becomes clear. And once you find it, even the smallest steps become powerful. Because now you're not just moving, you're moving with intention. Direction also gives your efforts meaning. When you know where you're going, you can say no to what doesn't serve you. You can protect your energy, choose your battles, and stay focused amid distractions. Life will always throw you opportunities that look good, but don't align with your path. Without direction, it's easy to say yes to everything and end up overwhelmed and scattered. But with clear direction, you become selective. You know that every yes must serve the greater journey. Every action must pull you forward, not just keep you busy. The danger of focusing only on speed is that it can blind you to the bigger picture. You chase the next goal, the next reward, the next task without ever asking why. And then one day you wake up successful on paper, but empty inside because you were climbing a mountain that was never yours to climb. That's the cost of ignoring direction. But when direction leads the way, even the smallest victories feel satisfying because they're part of something bigger, something aligned with who you are and what you believe. People often say they're stuck. But what they really mean is they're moving without purpose. They're putting in effort without vision. They're accelerating without steering. The answer is not always to do more, go faster. It's to pause and choose your path wisely. Like a cyclist who stops to check the map, sometimes you need to dismount, take a breath, and decide where the next turn should take you. That moment of reflection can save years of misguided effort. Success without direction is noise. Fulfillment without direction is rare. Growth without direction leads to confusion. But when you align your actions with your true direction, life begins to make sense. You stop rushing and start advancing. You stop chasing and start becoming. You stop reacting and start leading. It's not about getting ahead of others. It's about getting ahead of who you used to be, guided by purpose, fueled by meaning, even in challenging times. Direction acts as your compass. It helps you say, this moment is hard, but it's taking me somewhere. That sense of meaning transforms struggle into strength. You learn to endure not just because you're tough, but because you're clear. You know that storms are part of the journey, not the end of it. And clarity of direction gives you the patience to keep going when results are slow, and the courage to keep believing when others doubt your path. Direction turns ordinary actions into purposeful progress. It transforms your work, your time, your energy into something that builds your future. It frees you from comparison, protects you from burnout, and gives you the wisdom to move at the right pace. Because it's better to walk slowly in the right direction than to run fast toward the wrong destination. Every journey worth taking will come with resistance. On a bicycle, you feel it in the wind pushing against your chest, in the incline of a steep hill, in the roughness of the road beneath your tires. But no cyclist expects a smooth ride from start to finish. They know that resistance is not a sign that they're on the wrong path. It's a sign that they're moving. In life, resistance serves the same purpose. It doesn't show up to stop you. It shows up to shape you. It's proof that you're no longer standing still. The moment you begin to move forward with intention, life will push back. Not to punish you, but to prepare you for what lies ahead. Too many people interpret resistance as a signal to turn around. The moment things get difficult, they retreat. The first obstacle becomes the final excuse. But those who achieve anything of lasting value have learned to welcome resistance as part of the process. They don't fear it. They expect it, because growth never happens in the comfort zone. You don't build strength in stillness. You build it in the tension, in the pressure, in the moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. Just like your legs grow stronger against the weight of the climb, your character deepens when you keep moving through discomfort. Think about how muscles are built. They tear before they grow. They face strain before they gain power. Resistance is not a setback. It's a signal. It means you're stretching beyond what's familiar. You're entering territory that challenges you, forces you to rise, and draws out your true potential. Without resistance, progress would be meaningless. It's the friction that gives your journey its shape. It's the challenge that turns goals into victories. Without the struggle, there's no story to tell, no strength to gain, no lesson to carry forward. When you ride into a headwind, your pace slows. It takes more energy to cover the same distance, but you still move. That's what matters. The resistance doesn't stop you. It simply demands more from you. And when life demands more, you learn how much you're truly capable of. You learn to dig deeper, to focus harder, to become more resourceful. Resistance develops resilience. It teaches you patience. It sharpens your determination. It turns motion into meaning and effort into excellence. The path to anything worthwhile will always come with its share of obstacles. Doubt will whisper that you're not ready. Critics will tell you to stay where it's safe. Circumstances will stack against you. But none of those things can stop you unless you allow them to. Resistance only defeats those who stop pedaling. The moment you push forward again, no matter how slowly, you prove to yourself that resistance is not the enemy. It's a teacher. Every great accomplishment is a story of someone who faced resistance and kept moving anyway. Not because it was easy, but because they understood that the obstacle is part of the way. There will be times when the pressure feels overwhelming, when the wind of life pushes so hard you feel like you're making no progress at all. But forward motion is not always measured in miles. Sometimes staying on the bike is the victory. Sometimes the act of continuing when everything in you wants to give up is what builds the momentum you'll need for the next breakthrough. There are lessons hidden in resistance that cannot be learned any other way. Lessons about who you are, what you value, and how deeply you're committed to the path you've chosen. Resistance reveals the truth. It shows you what you truly believe. When things are easy, everyone seems confident. But when the pressure rises, when comfort disappears, when the easy road ends, that's when belief is tested. Do you believe in your goal enough to fight for it? Do you trust yourself enough to endure what's uncomfortable? Resistance will force you to answer those questions, not with words, but with action. And every time you keep going, even in doubt, even in pain, even in silence, you earn a deeper confidence that no one can take from you. Even nature shows us the power of resistance. Trees that grow in harsh winds develop deeper roots. Metal becomes stronger when tested by heat. The river carves its path through stone, not by force, but by persistence. You don't have to overpower resistance. You only have to outlast it. Every push against you is an opportunity to build endurance. Every delay is a lesson in discipline. Every setback is a reminder to realign your focus and recommit to the journey. What most people call resistance is often the very thing that will elevate them if they embrace it. The climb, the strain, the effort, it all builds the inner structure that success requires. Without it, you might reach the top, but you won't be strong enough to stay there. Resistance doesn't come to stop you. It comes to see if you're serious, if you'll keep going when the applause fades, if you'll still show up when nobody notices, if you'll pedal through the pain, knowing that the strength you gain now will carry you farther than you ever imagined later. It's easy to enjoy the ride when the road is smooth and the wind is behind you. But it's in the uphill battles that you discover who you really are. It's in the tough stretches that you learn how to rise. Resistance is not the problem. It's the path. It's the pressure that makes diamonds. It's the grind that builds greatness. It's the reminder that you are not weak for struggling. You are strong because you keep going anyway. When you're riding a bicycle, you don't have the luxury of standing still. The moment you stop pedaling and stop moving, balance is lost. No matter how advanced the bicycle, no matter how experienced the rider, the law remains the same. Motion is the key to stability. Life follows that same law. The moment you stop growing, stop learning, stop pursuing what matters, things begin to fall apart. Not always in dramatic fashion, sometimes slowly, quietly, subtly. But over time, the loss of motion becomes the loss of balance. You drift from your goals, your habits weaken, your mindset gets cloudy, and your motivation fades. Stillness in the wrong context is not rest, it's decay. There is a kind of stillness that replenishes, like sleep or reflection. But then there is the stillness of apathy, of fear, of hesitation, of comfort taken too far. That kind of stillness feels safe for a moment, but it steals momentum. And when you lose momentum, you lose access to the strength that only movement provides. Life is designed to be lived forward. You're not meant to stand frozen in place, overthinking every decision, avoiding every risk, waiting for guarantees. You're meant to be in motion, to be in pursuit, to be engaged in the unfolding of your own story. People often wait for the perfect time to begin, not realizing that waiting too long creates rust. Just like a bike left unused becomes stiff, dusty, and eventually unusable, so does talent when it's not applied, ambition when it's not expressed, and dreams when they're not pursued. Motion keeps the system alive. It keeps your ideas fresh, your energy circulating, your courage sharpened. When you're moving, even slowly, you stay connected to possibility. But when you remain idle for too long, fear starts to grow. Doubt creeps in. The mind begins to overcomplicate what was once clear. That's the cost of stillness. Balance is not achieved by trying to hold everything in place. It's achieved by continuing forward, even when the path isn't perfect. If you try to freeze in the middle of a ride, the fall is inevitable. The same applies to goals, to health, to relationships, to personal development. There is no safe place to stand still for too long. Every area of your life is either being strengthened by forward effort or weakened by inaction. There is no neutral zone. No matter how long you've been at something, no matter how much progress you've made, you can't coast forever. Sooner or later, the motion must return or the balance will break. You see it happen when someone hits a milestone and decides to rest indefinitely. They lose the hunger that got them there. They stop doing the small things that built the big results. They forget that balance is not something you store, it's something you maintain. One skipped habit becomes two. One lazy decision becomes a pattern. And before long, they wonder why everything feels off, why the fire they once had is now barely a spark. It's because the motion stopped, not abruptly, but gradually. And with that loss of motion came a loss of connection to purpose. In relationships, stillness often looks like neglect, the lack of presence, of effort, of intention. Things begin to drift, not because people stopped caring, but because they stopped moving. They stopped investing, stopped reaching out, stopped having real conversations. The bond that once felt strong begins to wobble, just like a bicycle slowing to a halt. Without continual investment, even the strongest relationships can lose balance. In health, stillness leads to decline. Not moving your body, not feeding it well, not managing stress. These choices may feel like rest in the moment, but over time they strip away vitality. Energy is not just preserved, it's generated by motion. Emotionally, stillness breeds stagnation. Avoiding the work of growth, avoiding the discomfort of change, avoiding the challenge of becoming more. It all leads to a kind of internal heaviness. Life loses its edge. Excitement turns to apathy. Inspiration turns to numbness. The antidote is movement. A single decision, a single step, a single action that disrupts the stillness and reminds the mind what it feels like to move forward again. You don't need a dramatic shift to reclaim balance. You just need to resume the rhythm, to begin again. To trust that movement, no matter how small, will lead you back to your strength. The danger of stillness is that it often wears a mask. It disguises itself as peace, as security, as being cautious or waiting for the right time. But behind the mask, it is often fear, the fear of failure, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of making the wrong move. But here's the truth. No move is the only wrong move. The fear that holds you in place eventually becomes the very thing that pulls you down. The bike doesn't tip because you turned wrong. It tips because you stopped, and life is no different. The moment you stop pursuing growth, purpose, and contribution, you begin to lose your center. That's why the most fulfilled people are not always the most comfortable. They are the ones who've committed to staying in motion, not frantic motion, not mindless business, but purposeful movement. They've learned that life unfolds best when you engage with it, when you keep pedaling even when it's hard, when you keep stretching even when it's inconvenient, when you stay involved in your own evolution. Because motion creates clarity, motion creates energy. Motion sustains balance. When you're moving, you're awake, you're alive, you're connected to the moment and the mission. Stillness, the wrong kind, disconnects you from both. The key is not to move perfectly, but to keep moving with intention. Every step forward sharpens your balance. Every act of courage strengthens your core. Every time you get back up and try again, you reclaim the power that stillness tried to take from you. The world may tell you to rest, to wait, to pause until everything is certain. But deep down, you know that life doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards motion. Because just like the bicycle you learned to ride long ago, your balance depends not on how still you can be, but on how bravely you can keep moving forward. Life, much like riding a bicycle, is a journey that demands motion, balance, direction, and resilience. It doesn't ask for perfection, but insists on consistency. It doesn't require speed, but calls for clarity. It doesn't promise ease, but guarantees resistance. And it certainly doesn't stand still. The moment you stop moving forward, the balance begins to slip away, not because you're weak or unworthy, but because life is not meant to be lived in pause. Momentum isn't a gift handed to a lucky few. It's built through repeated action. The path to progress isn't paved with comfort. It's carved through challenge. And your ability to remain upright in this ever-moving world depends on one simple decision: to keep going. Keep pedaling through the uphill climbs. Keep adjusting when the road curves. Keep rising after every fall. And keep believing that each turn of the wheel brings you closer to the life you were meant to build.